This is a spoiler review, so we are going all the way in. We're talking about Clark's final breakdown, Mary's trauma, the dinner scene, the pirate attack, Async, and that six-eyed image. So if you have not seen the Backrooms yet, stop here, because the ending confirms something darker than just the Backrooms are real. It confirms the Backrooms remember. Clark does not just get lost, he gets consumed by the version of himself he refuses to face. Mary survives, but the Backrooms still keep a piece of her. Hi, I'm Rob, and this is A Constantly Racing Mind, where every frame tells a story. We break down sci-fi, horror, action-adventure, prop culture, and all things geek. And today we're going deep into the spoiler side of the Backrooms. If you enjoy breakdowns like this, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and check out the Intelligent Filmgoers apparel. The link is in the description. Also, if you are heading out to see this in the theaters, check out the Run P app so you know the best time to step out without missing a major scare, reveal, or ending detail. During the pandemic, I watched a lot of YouTube, and it seemed like just about once or twice a day, videos about liminal spaces showed up on my feed. The Backrooms were a big part of those feeds. Like Clark, I don't know why I watched, but I did, quite a bit. The concept was intriguing, and I was hooked. So today we're talking about Backrooms, the 2026 A24 sci-fi horror and liminal horror film directed by Kane Parsons and written by Will Sudik. It stars Chiwetel Ejiofor and Renate, Reinsve, with Mark Duplass, Finn Bennett, Lukita Maxwell, and Avian Jogia also in the cast. This is an A24 film. It came out on May 29, 2026, and it runs about 105 minutes. That's an hour and 45 minutes, and it's rated R. And this is a full spoiler and ending explained review. Check out my non-spoiler review already posted. A quick note before we go deeper. Backroom does not have a mid-credit scene or a post-credit scene. Once the movie ends, that final six-eyed Mary image is the last major story beat. And honestly, it does not need a tag scene. That ending already leaves Async, Mary, and the Backrooms in a very uncomfortable place. So you can go to dinner, or just go home. Last warning, we're going all the way in. Set in the 1990s, the Backrooms follows Clark, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. Clark is a former architect whose life has collapsed. His marriage is over, his business failing, he drinks way too much, and he's sleeping in the basement of his own furniture store, Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire, a pirate-themed furniture store located at McKee Road and North Capitol Avenue in San Jose, California. Clark is also in therapy with Dr. Mary Klein, played by Renate, Reinsve. Mary is trying to get him to face his drinking, his divorce, and the bitter final argument he had with his ex-wife, Barbara. But Clark is not ready for that. Then Clark finds the Backrooms, not because he is searching for a portal, but because the lights keep flickering. The electric bill is huge, and the basement wiring is wrong. That is one of the things I like about this setup. The gateway to an impossible world is hiding behind a high utility bill. Clark should run, and he's an idiot, and he doesn't. And that tells us what this movie is really about. The Backrooms are not just empty yellow rooms. They become the place where Clark can avoid the life he ruined outside. The movie opens with a 6 to 7 minute found footage sequence that feels like a big screen version of Kane Parsons' first Backrooms YouTube episode. It follows a lost Async employee played by Avian Jogia. He's in a yellow hazmat suit carrying a 1990s era camcorder and trying to communicate with the team outside. The exact dialogue is hard to make out, but the gist is clear. He is lost and he's in trouble, and Async is already studying the Backrooms before Clark ever finds them. As he moves through the endless yellow rooms, damp carpet, and buzzing fluorescent lights, he finds a seagull lying on the floor before it wakes up and flies away. That one image tells us random things from the real world can fall into the Backrooms. People, animals, objects, anything that slips through the wrong place at the wrong time. Then the film gives us the first creature threat. This is not a pirate. This is a stringy black shadow creature. Feels alien, wrong, and unfinished. I think it's a direct nod to bacteria or life form monster from Kane Parsons' original YouTube series. The Async employee tries to survive, but the Backrooms closes in. The entity catches him and kills him. Now, that opening does three things fast. Async is involved, the Backrooms are already being studied, and whatever is down there is not just waiting, it hunts. After that cold open, the movie shifts into Clark's story. Clark is not introduced as a hero. He's introduced as a man already trapped before he ever steps through the wall. He used to be an architect. Now he owns Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire. The store is huge, empty, pirate-themed, and kind of sad. We get the clearest version of Clark's public persona through the local commercial he's filming at for the store. He is in full pirate mode. Ahoy there, mateys. He talks about hard-earned doubloons, deals that will shiver your timbers, and Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire being Santa Clara's Valley's favorite warehouse and showroom. Bedrooms, living rooms, bathrooms, first-time homeowners, new parents, no credit, no problem. Then he closes with a location, Capital and McKee, just off the 60, and every sultan deserves the throne. You have seen these ads before. They are cheesy by design. But then the scene immediately undercuts him. Clark's chair breaks while they are filming. He ends up on the floor with a table leg tied to his knee to stand in for a peg leg. That is funny for a second, then it's pathetic. The whole commercial is Clark trying to sell himself as a captain, a showman, a man in control of his own empire. But the second the camera stops, the illusion collapses. He isn't a captain. No, he is a desperate man on the floor of a failing furniture store. That pirate persona starts as a gimmick, but by the end it becomes his false self, a captain, a leader, a man in control. Except that Clark is not in control. He is bankrupt. His marriage is over. Barbara kept the house. He sleeps on display beds in the basement. He drinks heavily, and he keeps blaming everyone else for the damage he helped create. That is why the therapy scenes matter. Mary tries to get Clark to look at himself honestly. She has him role-play the final argument with Barbara, the night Barbara left him. Clark immediately corrects her, the night she kicked him out of his own house. That is Clark in one sentence. Even in therapy, he is trying to control the framing. Mary plays Barbara. Clark plays himself. And the scene shows the same loop he is trapped in. Drinking, blame, money, resentment. His anger that he never became the architect he wanted to be. When Mary, as Barbara, says, "Just because you didn't get to be an architect," Clark snaps back, "I am a fucking architect." That line is the wound. He is not only angry that his marriage failed, he is angry that his identity failed. Mary also carries her own wound into the movie. She has a chunk of concrete from the house where her mother locked her up as a child. The house was demolished, but that piece survived. It has Mary's childhood handprint in it. That is proof, memory, pain she can hold in her hand, and the movie pays that off later. Then Clark finds the portal. It starts with a practical problem, flickering lights, strange outages, a crazy electric bill. So he calls an electrician to the store. They open the breaker box in the basement and find 3 strange switches set in random positions. The electrician is baffled. Clark has no idea who installed them. He says they were already there when he bought the building. That suggests the connection to the Backrooms was threaded into the store long before Clark understood it. Later that evening, Clark is downstairs trying to watch TV on one of the display beds when the electrical problems start up again. The lights flicker, the power acts wrong, a lot of swearing. He goes back to the electrical panel and starts messing with it. After he turns off the basement lights, he notices something strange. A faint light is shining through a porous slit in the wall. He moves closer. The wall is not solid. There's something behind it. That is how Clark finds the entrance to the Backrooms, and his reaction is not normal. The dude does not freak out. I know I would. I would be there standing thinking, what is this Twilight Zone shit? But Clark doesn't run. He becomes fascinated. He starts mapping the Backrooms, studying them, treating this impossible nightmare like a discovery that belongs to him. The Backrooms are terrifying, but for Clark, they also feel useful. They give him a project, a purpose, something bigger than his failed marriage, his failed business, and his drinking. In other words, the Backrooms give him a way to avoid reality. And Clark takes it. As he explores, Sudek's script adds eerie details that make the Backrooms feel even more wrong. Distorted audio from NASA's Voyager Golden Record plays through the loudspeakers. Greetings in different languages echo through the dead office space. Voices meant to reach the stars are now trapped under fluorescent lights. Clark later explains the Backrooms to Mary with one of the best lines in the movie. He says it's like describing a dog to someone who's never seen one before, then asking them to draw it. In my mind, the Backrooms almost feels like reality generated from a bad AI prompt. The prompt was office building, furniture store, family home, hotel, courtyard, human being. And the Backrooms gave an answer. Yellow walls, rooms, chairs, windows, people. But the details are wrong, the purpose is wrong, the emotional meaning is wrong. It's not randomness, it's bad imitation. Backrooms can copy the surface, but they cannot understand the life underneath. And for Clark, that is enough. He's not looking for meaning, he wants to escape. To prove the Backrooms are real, Clark brings Kat and Bobby into it. Kat is the assistant manager at Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire. Bobby is her boyfriend, and he is a film or TV student. He operates the bulky 1990s camcorder, which gives the movie a reason to shift into the rougher 4:3 found footage style. Clark tells him it's for research. Bobby asks, for research on what? But Clark says he's going through a door. What the hell? They ask which door. And then he shows them. He has blue taped the outline on the other side to help them find their way back. That detail shows Clark's mindset. He thinks the Backrooms can be marked, documented, controlled. They can't. The biggest set piece here is Bobby's laundry chute sequence. Clark and Kat lower Bobby into an impossible laundry space. They tie a rope to a random bed and lower him down through the chute. Everything about this feels stupid and unsafe before the monster even shows up. Bobby jokes that if he doesn't come back, tell his mom he loves her. Then the rope gets stuck around the leg of the bed. That is the safety plan, a rope tied to furniture. When Bobby reaches the bottom, he finds rooms filled with piles of dirty clothes. It's domestic, but it's not comforting. It feels like something ordinary has been stripped of warmth, turned rotten, and it stinks. Then Bobby notices something personal in the pile. His own and apartheid shirt. The same shirt he was wearing earlier. That changes the whole space. The laundry pile is not random garbage. The Backrooms are pulling from Bobby's life, memory, or subconscious and putting it back in the wrong place. Then he sees a woman's face in the pile. I don't think it is Kat. Kat's still alive at this point. It plays more like another Backrooms copy, a warped memory, another trapped person, or a malformed human shape generated by the Backrooms. The exact identity matters less than in the implication. The Backrooms are not only building rooms, they're pulling pieces out of people and putting them where they should not be. Then Bobby hears something, and he gets scared. He yells for them to pull him up. Clark and Kat pull him back up, but he's still tied to the rope, dumb shit. And then something pulls him down again. Because Clark and Kat tied the rope to the bed gets yanked hard, and that knocks both of them down the chute as well. The thing they thought was keeping Bobby safe drags all three of them deeper into the Backrooms. The scene turns into chaos. There is a bloody trail leading to a sideways door. Bobby keeps trying to crawl out, but something keeps dragging him back in. This is the moment the movie says, not everything here is symbolic. Sometimes the Backrooms just kills you. Bobby is dragged through that door and killed. All that is left behind is blood. Clark and Kat are separated. Clark ends up with Bobby's camera as he tries to follow Kat. Bobby proves the Backrooms have a direct physical threat. Kat proves Clark has become one. At first, Kat's fate feels like another Backrooms disappearance, but the third act reveals something worse. Kat was not just killed by an entity. I think Clark murdered her. Around this point, the movie quietly cuts away and shows Phil at home. We've seen Phil before as Clark is wandering the Backrooms. There are cameras placed around the Backrooms for people like Phil to monitor any activity. There's not much dialogue, but the scene does a lot. Phil is making popcorn for his family. It feels ordinary, maybe even weekend ordinary. A normal house, a normal family, a normal afternoon. Then a Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire commercial plays on the television. Phil reacts. You can see the recognition hit him. He realizes the man from the commercial is the same man connected to the Backrooms footage Async has been monitoring. That means Phil is not only introduced at the end as a random interrogator, the film already showed him connecting Clark's public life to Async's private investigation. It also gives the commercial another purpose. Early on, it shows Clark's fake pirate persona and failing business. Here it becomes evidence. Clark thought he was performing for customers, but that performance helps Async identify him. When Clark misses therapy, Mary goes to the furniture store looking for him. The store is closed, mail is stuffed under the door, no lights, no customers, but the door is unlocked. Mary walks through the dark store and down into the basement. There she finds evidence of Clark's obsession, a circular table covered with filming gear, climbing gear, and tools for exploring the Backrooms, a whiteboard with diagrams, blue tape marks a door outline on the wall. Mary touches the tape area, and her hand passes through. That is when she realized Clark was not delusional. The backrooms are real. She enters. Clark entered to avoid accountability. Mary enters to find someone. But the backrooms do not care why you came in. They start working on her too. Mary hears her mother's voice. The backrooms recreate her childhood wound, the room, the fear, and the command that she was never supposed to go outside. The backrooms are not just copying offices and furniture stores. They're copying trauma. As Mary moves deeper, she finds a room where Clark has covered the wall with a strange mural. Part map, part warning, part breakdown. There are crude drawings of houses, doors, windows, shadowy figures, furniture, and strange notes. Some of it looks like Clark trying to understand the rules of the backrooms. Some of it looks like the backrooms have already started eating through his mind. Mary studies the wall. Then she hears Clark nearby. She calls out to him. For a moment, it feels like she found him. But this is not a rescue. Clark comes out of hiding and attacks her. He chokes her unconscious. And in his mind, he's doing it for her own good. Now that shows how twisted he has become. He can hurt someone, control someone, and still tell himself he is helping. Clark is fucking twisted. When Mary wakes up, she is tied to a chair at a kitchen table. The scene is a twisted domestic nightmare. Clark is seated with distorted copies generated by backrooms, including a fat man with 3 sets of eyes, a red-haired woman. He behaves as if this is normal dinner, like this is a home, like these broken copies are guests. Then he explains what the backrooms are doing. This place builds them. Actually, more like it remembers them. Take note of that line. The backrooms are not creating random monsters. They're remembering people and places, but remembering them wrong. Somewhere outside, there is a guy in a striped shirt. In here, he is slightly wrong. Somewhere outside, there is a man in a wheelchair and a lamp. That same logic applies to rooms, buildings, and places. They are misremembering themselves, memory with errors. Going back to my AI analogy, this is a bad imitation. Then Clark says something worse. He thinks the copies are an improvement. They cannot feel anything. No pain, no ego, no fear. They simply exist, like furniture. Then he reveals the best part, in his twisted mind. You can eat them. That turns the dinner scene into body horror and self-justification at the same time. Clark is not just surviving in the backrooms, he is participating in their logic. He treats copied people like furniture, and that fits him because he has been treating real people like furniture too. Objects, props, things that exist to support him. Then Clark opens the refrigerator and reveals Kat's severed head. He starts to justify himself. That's my assistant manager. I try to help her, but then he trails off. Shithead. The unfinished sentence is more disturbing than a full explanation. Kat rejected his new reality. Kat stopped serving the story he was trying to tell, and Clark killed her. The movie does not really develop Kat and Bobby as fully realized characters beyond their roles in Clark's world. But I think that is part of the point. Clark does not see them as full people either. They help him shoot commercials, they help him document the backrooms, they serve the story he is trying to tell about himself. Once they stop serving that purpose, he barely considers what happens to them. Bobby becomes part of the backroom's danger. Kat becomes part of Clark's denial. Then Clark turns the scene into something even more personal. He wants Mary to tell him she was wrong about him, but when she says it, he does not accept it. Not like that. He wants to set the scene first. He wants to go back to the night he got kicked out of his own house. He points to the red-haired still-life woman, the broken Barbara copy, and he says he tried to act this exercise with her before, but it didn't go anywhere, so now he would do it himself. Still my house, after all. That line is terrifying because he has rebuilt the same argument inside the backrooms, only now he has total control. In Mary's office, the role play was supposed to help Clark confront himself. Here, Clark uses it to avoid himself. He forces Mary into Barbara's place because he still refuses to face what he did to his life. Because Barbara had red hair, Clark scalps the red-haired still life and forces the hair onto Mary's head like a wig. That is when the scene fully crosses into nightmare territory. Clark is trying to turn Mary into the woman he blames for his collapse. Then he replays the argument, the glass, the late night, the drinking, the money, the law school, the kids, the line about being an architect. And Mary finally breaks the loop. She tells him the truth he has been avoiding since therapy. The reason Barbara left was not just the drinking or stumbling home at all hours, or the rage. It was the whining. Nothing is ever his fault. He drinks too much and he blames the job. He hates the job and blames the world. He gets kicked out of the house and blames his wife. Now he attacks Mary, ties her up, and still tries to blame his brain. Then she says the line that cuts through all of it. "You are your fucking brain, you dipshit." That destroys Clark's favorite escape hatch. He cannot separate himself from his behavior forever. He cannot keep saying, "This is just how I'm wired." Like that means he has no responsibility. Clark asks if she is saying it is his fault. Yes. Then he asks how he stops doing that. Mary says she has no fucking clue. And you can feel her certainty collapse. She cannot therapist her way out of this. She cannot fix Clark. And at that moment, she is also trying to survive him. Then Clark reaches the real truth. He does not think he wants to change. He likes it in here. So for the first time in a long time, he feels like he is right where he is supposed to be. This is Clark's tragedy. The Backrooms did not fix his life. They give him a place where he never has to change. And he chooses it. Then the psychological horror breaks open. The massive pirate doll, the mascot from Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire, steps out of the shadows. This is not just a creature. It is a still-life monster, a malformed copy of Clark himself. His fake pirate persona, his narcissism, his commercial mask, his fantasy of control made physical. Clark introduces Mary to the pirate like this thing is part of the household. "This is Mary. She's our therapist. She was just leaving." Then he reassures the pirate, No, you don't have to worry." Then he twists Mary's own therapeutic language into a final excuse. She says we don't need to change. It's okay. It's just the way we're wired. That is Clark's entire collapse in one moment. He has taken the language of therapy and turned it into permission to stay broken. But nothing is fine. The pirate leans into Clark's face and lets out a terrifying glitching screech. Then comes the cruel karma. Clark has been eating still life copies to survive. Now the Backrooms returns the favor. A pirate bites deep into Clark's neck and shoulder. Clark is torn apart and eaten by the monstrous version of his own fake ego. He wanted to be Captain Clark. The Backrooms gave him Captain Clark, and Captain Clark destroys him. Clark consumed the Backrooms to stay alive, then the Backrooms consumed him. The Ditter guests are left behind. They are not people anyone can save. They are part of the room now, part of the Backrooms. Broken imitation of human life. The scalped, red-haired, still life, Clark's broken version of Barbara, runs away terrified. Mary flees too, plunging deeper into the Backrooms with a pirate chasing her. This is not a simple hallway chase. The pirate chases her all over the damn place. She moves through copied domestic interiors, strange architectural pockets, and an uncomfortably geometric courtyard that looks like a massive empty hotel courtyard surrounded by repeating windows. A courtyard should feel open. This one feels trapped. Mary enters one of the rooms off the courtyard and reaches a door opening into a ledge many stories above the floor. She crawls into the ledge as the pirate breaks through behind her. The Backrooms now become a vertical nightmare. Height, drop-offs, repeating windows, exits that only lead into another impossible trap. Mary reaches a stairway in the middle of a massive pit. The stairs lead to a door in the ceiling. She climbs, she opens it, the door falls off its hinges and drops down through the floors below. Mary climbs through and lands in the basement showroom of, I think, a fake version of Clark's furniture store. The Backrooms are now copying Clark's world directly. As Mary moves toward the main floor, she realizes the pirates following her. Even a space that looks like the store is not safety. It is the Backrooms wearing the shape of a place where this nightmare began. When the creature grabs her, she strikes it with a coat rack and breaks its wooden peg leg. Then the movie pays off Mary's most important object. She uses the concrete chunk with her childhood handprint to smash the pirate's head. To me, that is one of the strongest symbolic moments in the film. This concrete came from the house where her mother locked her up. It is a piece of the room that traumatized her, a piece of the childhood she survived, a piece of proof she has carried with her, and now she turns it into a weapon. Mary does not erase what happened to her. She uses it to survive. Mary spots a series of wires and piping and follows them through a narrow passage. It's barely wide enough for her to move through, so the pirate cannot follow. For the first time in the chase, the backroom's impossible architecture works in her favor. The wires and cables lead to an async containment point. Mary reaches a brighter open area, and for a split second it feels like she made it out. But she has not escaped into freedom. She has walked straight into async. An async employee in a hazmat suit immediately gasses her, thinking she may be another creature or contaminated threat from the backrooms. Other async workers pull him back and show him the truth. It's not a monster, it's Mary. She is human. Mary escapes one threat and is immediately treated like another possible specimen. Then she wakes up inside the async facility. Phil, played by Mark Duplass, interrogates her. He asks her how she got in. Mary says, "I walked through a wall in the basement of a furniture store." Phil says Async used to make MRI machines, but not anymore. That was before they found the backrooms. From a lore perspective, this detail matters. Async wasn't always a shadowy paranormal group. It was a medical imaging company. Then it found the biggest discovery in human history, and the whole organization changed around it. Phil says he goes into the backrooms every day and maps areas the best he can. He believes nothing in their lifetime, maybe nothing in all recorded history, matters more than this. Async is sinister, but it's also overwhelmed. They're not calm because they understand the backrooms. They're calm because they're trying to look like they understand them. Mary throws Clark's dog analogy back into the conversation. It is like describing a dog to someone who's never seen a dog. Now Phil wants Mary to describe it so someone else could write it down. Mary realized what is happening. She escaped the backrooms, but now she's being held by the people studying them. She asks what will happen to her. Phil says that decision is not up to me. Kane, Parsons, and Will Sudik are twisted. Mary survived the backrooms, but she did not escape captivity. The backrooms were one prison, Async is another. Then Phil adds the larger problem. Doors are opening everywhere. They do not know why. They do not know what is connecting them. They just keep happening, and Async does not know how to stop them. Async is not just hiding the truth. Async is losing control of it. The movie ends by returning to the backrooms. A new still-life version of Mary has been created inside them. This copy has 6 eyes and quietly stares at its own hand. Mary escaped physically, but she did not leave cleanly. The backrooms copied her body, her memory, her identity, some broken mix of all the three. So the ending is not just asking, did Mary survive? She did. Now the darker question is, how much of Mary got out? The final shot suggests the backrooms do not only kill people, they study them, copy them, make mistakes, preserve pieces. Clark became a warning, Mary became a prisoner, and the 6-eyed copy of Mary proves the backrooms are still learning. That is the horror of the backrooms. Not just that you can get lost in there. It is that once you enter, the backroom learns your shape, and even if you escape, some version of you may still be left behind. So what does the ending mean? On the surface, Clark dies. Mary escapes the backroom. Async captures her, and the backrooms create a copy of Mary. But the emotional meaning is darker. Clark is destroyed by the pirate's still life because that creature is the backroom's version of him. The commercial mascot, the captain persona, the salesman mask, the fantasy of control. Clark spends the movie refusing responsibility. He blames Barbara, he blames the job, he blames the world. He blames his own brain. Then he finds the backrooms, and for the first time in a long time, it feels like he isn't right where he belongs. That is the horror. The backrooms reward his denial at first. They give him room to map, copies to control, a fake dinner, a fake Barbara. Then they give him the pirate, and the pirate eats him. Just like Clark ate the still life copies. That is the cruel symmetry. Clark consumed the backrooms to survive, then the backrooms consumed him. Mary's ending is different. Mary survives because she fights back. She uses the concrete handprint from her childhood to smash the monster. The movie does not frame her trauma as something she simply escapes. She uses it. She turns the weight of what happened to her into a weapon. But Parsons and Sudik do not give her a clean victory. She gets out of the backrooms and wakes up in an async custody. The backrooms are a supernatural prison. Async is a human one. Phil's line, that decision is not up to me is chilling because it sounds calm and reasonable, but it is also the kind of sentence institution used when nobody wants to take responsibility. Mary is not rescued. She is processed. She is treated like information. And the six-eyed Mary clone tells us the backroom already copied her. That does not mean Mary is dead. It means survival is not clean in this world. You can leave the backrooms physically, but the backrooms can still keep an imprint of you. Clark brings denial. Mary brings trauma. Async brings control. The backrooms take all of it and build. That is the ending. Clark becomes a warning about escape becoming self-destruction. Mary becomes proof that survival does not always mean freedom. And Async becomes the next nightmare outside the yellow walls. Before we go deeper, it helps to understand where this concept came from. The original backroom started as Internet Whore. In May 2019, an anonymous user posted an unsettling image of an empty yellowish room on 4chan. The image came with a short idea. If you no-clip out of reality in the wrong place, you fall into the backrooms. No-clip comes from video games. It means glitching through a solid object or passing through boundaries you are not supposed to cross. I remember this happening to me while playing Unreal Tournament in the late 1990s. 1 second you're moving through the map normally, then something breaks and suddenly you're inside a wall behind the level, or looking at the game space from somewhere you were never meant to be. That is what makes the backrooms concept creepy. It takes that weird little video game glitch and turns it into a horror premise. What if reality had collision detection? And what if one day it failed? The classic backrooms image is what most people know. Mono yellow wallpaper, old moist carpet, endless empty rooms, the hum of fluorescent lights. It feels like an office, a hotel hallway, a conference center, a basement, and a dead retail space blended together into something wrong. Over time, the internet expanded the idea into a huge fiction universe with levels, entities, rules, and survival lore. But this film is much closer to Kane Parsons' version. Kane Parsons, through the Kane Pixels YouTube series, turned the backrooms into something grounded, cinematic, and sci-fi driven. In this version, the backrooms connect to the Async Research Institute. Async studies an impossible space they call the complex. In Kane's Pixel lore, Async experiments with magnetic distortion, opened a stable threshold into a space in the late 1980s. That changes the story because the backrooms are not only a place people fall into, they are something humans discovered, entered, studied, and tried to control. And while it's not a one-to-one comparison as I was watching this, I kept thinking about Fringe. Not because the stories are the same, but because both deal with scientists pushing too far, opening a door they do not understand, and then spending the rest of the story trying to study, contain, or survive the consequences. In Fringe, that means alternate dimensions bleeding into each other. Here it means the backrooms pushing through reality through thresholds, null zones, and doors that keep opening where they should not. Async thinks it's studying a discovery, but the discovery is not passive. The backrooms are pushing back. Kane's version also expands what the backrooms can look like. Not only yellow office rooms, the complex can mimic human environments, but it does so imperfectly. Suburban streets, swimming pools, childhood spaces, indoor playgrounds, places copied from the real world, but rebuilt without understanding what those places mean. That connects directly to the film. Bobby's shirt in the laundry pile, Mary's childhood room, the fake furniture store, the dinner scene, the pirate, the six-eyed Mary copy. The backrooms keep copying the surface of reality while missing the soul underneath. That is the Kane Parsons version of this movie is building. Found footage, async, the corporate research angle, the unstable threshold, the wrong copies of human spaces, the life form influence, the still life copies, and that is why the ending works for many. The backrooms are not just a place humans explore. They are a place that explores humans' past. And yeah, that sounds like very Nietzsche. That old idea, when you stare into the abyss stares back. Only here, the abyss has yellow wallpaper, fluorescent lights, and enough memory to build a broken version of you inside. Clark is not just a man who finds the backrooms. He's already living in his own version of them. A failed business, a failed marriage, a private persona he barely believes in, a basement bed in his own store, and a drinking problem he keeps blaming on everything except himself. That is Clark's core problem. He refuses responsibility. The commercial scene shows it perfectly. He wants to be the captain of Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire, but the chair breaks and he ends up on the floor with a table leg tied to his knee. A man performing authority while everything under him is breaking. So when he finds the backrooms, a normal person would run. Fuck, I would. Clark gets excited. The backrooms give him the ultimate excuse to stop looking at himself. He can map them, study them, claim them, turn them into a new purpose. That is why they feel almost symbiotic with him. The backrooms reflect his inner life, the empty spaces, the dead business, no real destination, and no honest way out. By the end, the giant pirate doll from his own store becomes Clark's false self made physical, and Clark is killed by the version of himself he refused to face. Chiwetel Ejiofor is one great casting choice for Backrooms because he specializes in controlled intensity. His character has moved through prestige drama, science fiction, thrillers, and major studio films. But the common thread is pressure. In my favorite, Serenity, Chiwetel Ejiofor plays the operative, a calm, ruthless alliance agent whose quiet conviction makes him terrifying, because although he does see himself as evil, he is a monster. He also sees himself as necessary. In 12 Years a Slave, he carried unbearable emotional weight with restraint. In The Martian, he played a problem solver facing the impossible. In Doctor Strange, his character belief system cracks after seeing the cost of bending reality. Clark is not just scared of the backrooms, he becomes obsessed with them. He finds a place that should not exist, and instead of walking away, he keeps going back. Ejiofor makes that descent believable by showing fear, intelligence, curiosity, and collapse without turning the performance into a horror movie theatrics. As in Serenity, he maintains the same controlled stillness. This is important to his performance in Backrooms because Ejiofor knows how to make obsession feel disciplined before it turns dangerous. He gives the movie a human center, and for a story built around empty rooms and impossible hallways, that human center is what keeps the whole thing from becoming an internet concept stretched to feature length. Mary is Clark's therapist. She is also a successful self-help author with tapes advertised on local television. On the surface, she is composed and controlled, but she is not untouched by pain. She is lonely, she is angry, and she carries deep childhood trauma from a mother who kept her locked away in a room. Mary has built her adult life around understanding the mind and creating language for healing. But the backrooms push her into something psychology cannot contain. That is why her roleplay scenes with Clark matter. In the therapy, the roleplay is meant to help Clark face himself. In the backrooms, Clark weaponizes that same exercise against her. He turns therapy into captivity. The concrete handprint gives Mary's arc its physical shape. It's proof of the room she survived, and it's when she uses it to smash the pirate's head, the movie gives her trauma a payoff without pretending it disappears. Mary survives, but she does not get a clean escape. She leaves the backrooms and wakes up in the Async custody. And the final six-eyed copy means the backrooms still kept something from her. Reinsve is a strong choice for backrooms because she brings grounded intelligence and emotional precision to the screen. Her breakout role in The Worst Person in the World made her an international name, and that performance showed how well she can play someone caught between uncertainty, self-examination, and emotional pressure. She won Best Actress at Cannes for that role, and it remains the clearest example of the quiet control she brings to a scene. That fits Dr. Mary perfectly. In Backrooms, Dr. Mary is not just Clark's therapist, she is the audience's anchor. Clark is pulled toward the impossible while she is trying to keep him connected to reality. Reinsve can make listening feel dramatic. She can show doubt, concern, curiosity, and fear without overplaying it. And in a movie built around obsession, empty spaces, and a reality that refuses to behave, that kind of restraint matters. She helps ground the film. While Clark is drawn deeper into the maze, Dr. Mary reminds us that he is losing outside of it. Kat is Clark's assistant manager. She works inside this failing business and helps film commercials. That makes what happens to her personal. Clark does not bring strangers into the backrooms. He pulls people from his own collapsing world in there with him. At first, Kat feels like another backrooms disappearance, but the dinner scene changes all that. Clark opens the refrigerator and reveals Kat's severed head. He says she was his assistant manager and he tried to help her. Then he trails off. I believe Clark killed her. That reveal shows he is no longer just surviving the nightmare. He has helped creating it. Kat's role is tragic because she proves Clark's obsession has victims. Lukita Maxwell's role is smaller than Clark or Mary's, but Kat gives the movie a human cost outside the two leads. Kat is part of Clark's everyday world. She works in the store, she helps with the commercials. So when the refrigerator reveal happens, it feels like betrayal, not just a plot function. Bobby is Kat's boyfriend and a film or TV student. He brings the camera into the story, which gives the movie a reason to shift from 4:3 found footage. His shoot sequence is one of the most tense scenes in the film. Rope, bed, dirty laundry, his own shirt in the pile, a face in the clothes, strange sounds, and then the pull downward. Bobby's death shows the physical danger of the backrooms. Kat's death shows Clark's moral collapse. Bobby shows that the backrooms have monsters. Kat shows that Clark has become one. Finn Bennett fits the part because Bobby brings the camera and the fear. His footage makes the backrooms feel less like a polished movie space and more like evidence someone is never supposed to find. And as I was watching him, I knew I had seen him somewhere. Later, I realized he was Jodie Foster's deputy in True Detective, Night Country. I liked him in that. Phil does not get a lot of screen time, but he changes the ending. He is not only at the end. Earlier, while Mary is entering the furniture store, the movie quietly shows Phil at home. He's making popcorn for his family. Then a Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire commercial plays. Phil sees Clark and recognizes him. That connects Clark's public identity to Async's private investigation. It also shows Phil has a normal life outside the institution. He has a home, a family, and a TV time with his family. But the backrooms will reach into that normal life through something as ordinary as a local furniture commercial. By the time Mary wakes up in Async custody, Phil already has context. He has seen Clark and he has made the connection. And now Mary is another piece of the impossible puzzle. Phil is calm, controlled, and professional. And that is what makes him unsettling. He is not just a monster. He is a man just doing his job. But his job is the problem. He questions Mary because he wants data. He wants her experience turned into research. Async used to make MRI machines. Then it found the backrooms, and the institution bent around that discovery. When Mary asks what will happen to her, Phil says, "That decision is not up to me." And that line is cold because it sounds honest, but it removes responsibility. Phil is dangerous because he is reasonable, and the ending complicates him. He admits doors are opening everywhere. Async doesn't know how or why. Async doesn't know how to stop him. So Async is not only hiding the backrooms, Async is afraid of them. I like Mark Duplass for Phil because he can make ordinary calm feel uncomfortable. In Creep and Creep 2, he helped turn conversational discomfort into horror. Here, Phil does not need to feel like a traditional villain. He feels like a man who knows more than he is saying. Not the kind of menace that jumps out from the dark, the kind that sits across from you with a file and already knows you're not leaving. For the feature, the production built more than 30,000 square feet of practical backroom sets in Vancouver. Kane Parsons and James Wan discussed the scale of the set directly on A24's podcast. And Chiwetel Ejiofor has talked about being surprised that something this physical had not already been built before. That practical scale matters. The actors are not just pretending to be inside an infinite labyrinth. They are walking through one. You feel that tangibility in the frame. The walls look like they smell like mildew. The carpet feels like it has been absorbed years of bad air. The lights hum with a frequency that get under your skin. And because so much of it is physically there, the movie has texture. It has weight. It has a strange, ugly beauty to it. That physicality matters even more because the movie does not just use the sets as hallways. It turns them into Clark's psychology. Mary's trauma, Bobby's death trap, Kat's murder reveal, and eventually that dinner room where everything curdles into body horror. The backrooms work because they take spaces we know and drain the warmth out of them. Yellow wallpaper, damp carpet, fluorescent lights, dead retail space. Rooms that almost understand human life, but not quite. That is the right way to visualize the backrooms. Not total chaos, bad imitation. Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire is already a perfect doorway because the store is full of fake rooms and fake comfort. Display beds, couches, tables, pirate decorations. A fake kingdom built by a man avoiding the truth. So when Clark steps into the Backrooms, it feels like he has stepped into the infinite version of what his life already became. His life is a dead space, a dead business, a dead identity, a building full of things meant to look like home, but with no home inside it. Now, the sound design is one of the most important pieces of the movie. The Backrooms are not silent. They buzz, they hum, they breathe in a mechanical way. The movie understands that fluorescent lighting can be its own kind of threat. The low electrical sound becomes a pressure system. It sits on you. It makes even stillness feel active. And when the sound drops into something wrong, the movie gets under your skin. Not because it's loud, because it feels like the space has changed before you notice it. Now that we are talking spoilers, the sound design becomes even more important. The Voyager Golden Record audio is one of the strangest touches. Those greetings were meant to represent humanity. They were sent outward as a message to the universe. In this movie, those voices echo through empty yellow corridors where nobody can answer. Human communication became trapped. Bobby's Chute sequence also uses sound as the threat before we clearly see anything. He hears something down there. The room changes because the sound changes, and by the time the rope pulls him back up, the audience knows the Backrooms answered. Pirate Still Life has its own sound language. That roar does not sound like normal movie monster. It sounds like a biological error, animal panic, human pain, digital damage, all fighting for space at the same time. There's something like a chimpanzee or primate screams in it, which gives it the sharp fear response. But there's also something human buried underneath, breathing, wailing, screaming. The pirate is not just a creature. It is a corrupted, misremembered copy of Clark. The sound gets warped until it feels neither alive nor mechanical. It stutters and glitches like that. The sound itself is having trouble rendering inside the Backrooms. And the pirate does not just roar. It tears through the space. The reverb makes it hard to know where it is or how close it is. Before the pirate even reaches Clark or Mary, the sound is already doing the work. The Backrooms take pieces of reality, copies them, misremembers them, and distorts them. The pirate's sound design does the same thing with noise. Then the async trap adds another layer. Alarms, gas, industrial force. The sound shifts from supernatural dread to institutional machinery. The Backrooms hum, the monsters glitch, and async contains. Jeremy Cox's cinematography is the key to why Backrooms works visually. Cox and Kane Parsons did not want the movie to look too glossy or plastic. Their goal was to keep it grounded and raw. That matters because this is not gothic horror. It's not a haunted mansion horror. The fear comes from something uglier and more ordinary. Yellow walls, low ceilings, damp carpet, office lighting. Rooms that feel like they were designed by nobody and maintained by nobody. When I was younger, I worked at a local TV station and studied filmmaking. So the choices filmmakers make interest me. In an interview with Cox, I learned they shot the main movie on a Sony Venice 2. They used Supreme Prime lenses in a full frame and wider focus lengths, but avoid making everything too soft and shallow. They kept the aperture around T2.8 or T4, which helped keep the environmental readable. That matters. The Backrooms should not blur away behind the actors. The rooms need to stay visible. The walls, ceiling, and carpet and wrong details need to stay present. The horror is not only behind the character, the horror is the room around them. For the found footage sequences, they did not actually shoot on old 1990s camcorders. They used an RED Komodo with a crop frame and a Canon 8 64mm Super 16mm zoom lens. That gave them the jerky servo zoom feel of old home video, while still giving visual effects enough resolution to extend sets and add creatures. Then they degraded the footage in post to match Kane Parsons' YouTube aesthetic. So it feels rough, but is still controlled enough for a feature. The lighting follows the same philosophy. They relied heavily on practical overhead fluorescence built into the set. Sometimes they nudged the lighting slightly, sometimes they left it flat. That is the right call, I think. The Backrooms should not feel elegantly lit. They should feel like the lights were installed for function and then left running forever. They also had to solve the mono yellow problem. If you just tint everything yellow in post, actors look sick in the wrong way. so they tested physical shades of yellow on set until they found a color that felt wrong but still kept skin tones human. That is why the yellow does not feel like a filter. It feels built into the walls. And one of the coolest parts is that Kane Parsons pre-visualized the sets and camera angles in Blender before the Backrooms were built. Cox even learned Blender from Kane so he could move a virtual camera through the digital sets before shooting. That connects the YouTube origin directly to the feature. The movie does not abandon Kane's process, it scales it up. This pays off hardest in Bobby's camcorder footage, Mary's walk through the dead store, and the dinner scene. The camera never makes the Backrooms look cool. It makes them feel cheap, stale, endless, and hostile. Greg Ing's editing is just as important as the cinematography because Backrooms lives or dies by rhythm. This is a film built on repetition, hallways, corners, rooms that look almost the same, doors that may lead nowhere, a character trying to map a place that does not want to be mapped. That can become hypnotic or it can become tedious. Ing's job is to keep that line tense. He has recent horror experience with Longlegs and the Monkey, but Backrooms asks for a different rhythm. This is not just about cutting the scares. It's about knowing when to withhold, when to hold a shot too long, when to make the audience question whether anything has changed, and when to let that emptiness become the threat. In a normal horror movie, the edit often tells you when to be scared. In Backrooms, the edit works better when it does not tell you that right away. It lets the space breathe. Then it lets that breathing become uncomfortable. Now, that rhythm becomes even more important. The movie moves from async found footage to Clark's collapse, to Bobby's shoot sequence, to Mary's search, to the dinner scene, and then to the async ending. That could have felt scattered, but the editing keeps each kind of horror distinct. The prologue is discovery horror, Clark's story is psychological collapse, Cat and Bobby's section is found footage survival horror, the dinner is domestic body horror, and the async ending is institutional horror. Going back to main themes, Ing keeps tying everything back to the same central idea. The Backrooms copy what people bring in. Clark brings denial, Mary brings trauma, async brings control, and like a bad AI prompt, the Backroom turns all of it into rooms. In a normal horror movie, the edit often tells you when to be scared. In Backrooms, the edit works better when it does not tell you that right away. It lets the space breathe. Then it lets that breathing become uncomfortable. The music for the Backrooms was composed by Ejiofor van Breemen and Kane Parsons, and that combination kind of fits the film's whole identity. This is not a score that needs to announce itself with big horror stingers every few minutes. The Backrooms does not need that. The space already feels wrong. What the music does is blur the line between score and environment. Kane Parsons has talked about being drawn to ambient music that lingers instead of moving like a normal song. He's pointed to artists like Aphex Twins, Boards of Canada, and Burial as part of the inspiration behind the score's atmosphere. Ejiofor van Breemen is a Canadian composer and a musician based in Vancouver. What makes him a strong fit is that his background is not limited to traditional film music. He has worked in live performances, electronic music, documentary scoring, and immersive spatial sound. He was also associated with the Vancouver band Bastronaut, whose music blended indie, electronic, and jazz-influenced textures, which is great as the Backrooms does not need a normal horror score. Now, the best way to describe the music is the hum of fluorescent lights, the electrical pressure in the walls, the little buzz of a room that should be empty but does not feel dead. That is the sound language of this movie. Van Breemen's credits include Afflicted, Air, Hollow in the Land, The Monkey, Keeper, and The Backward Class. And with Backrooms, the score has to feel less like music placed over the image and more like something the building is producing. Low electronic pressure, fluorescent hum, empty room ambience, mechanical dread. That is the sound language this movie needs. And Van Breemen's background in immersive sound make that connection feel natural. In a film about impossible spaces, the music has to do more than create a mood. It has to trap you there. The score is not just supporting scares. It helps define the rules of the space. In the dinner scene, Clark's nightmare does not need big music to announce itself. The room already feels infected. The silence, the hum, the small sounds of bodies and objects, and the pirate's sudden glitch keeps the scene grounded in discomfort. And when Mary is pulled into async, The sound changes again, colder, more controlled, more procedural. Mary has not gone from danger to safety. She has gone from one soundscape of captivity into another. What I appreciate is that the Backrooms understands why the concept works. It's not only about monsters, it's about spaces that look familiar but feel abandoned by meaning. It's about a room that should be empty but somehow feels occupied. It is about hearing a sound and not knowing whether it is electrical, mechanical, alive, or inside your own head. The scariest image is not always the creature. Sometimes it's a hallway, a table, a pile of clothes, a chunk of concrete with a child's handprint in it, or a copy of a person staring at their own hand, trying to understand what it has become. So here are the core themes. I cleaned it up somewhat. The Backrooms turns avoidance into architecture. Clark does not enter because he is brave. He enters because the Backrooms let him stop looking at himself. He does not have to face Barbara. He does not have to face the failed business. He does not have to face his drinking, and he does not have to face therapy pushing him toward accountability. The Backrooms give him a project big enough to hide inside. That is why they consume him. The second theme is imitation without understanding. The Backrooms copy spaces, objects, peoples, and memories, but they get the meaning wrong. Bobby gets his own shirt in the laundry pile. Mary gets her childhood trauma rebuilt around her. Clark gets the pirate, and the final Mary copy proves the Backrooms are still learning. The third theme is that survival is not freedom. Mary survives the pirate. She uses her trauma as a weapon and gets out of the Backrooms, but Async immediately turns her into evidence. She leaves one prison and wakes up in another. That is why the ending works for me. Clark is gone, Mary is trapped, Async is watching, and somewhere inside the yellow walls, another Mary is staring at her own hand. The Backrooms do not just trap people. They translate them into something wrong. Before I get into what worked and what did not work, let's look at the critical response and box office. As of this recording, Backrooms is sitting at 89% on Rotten Tomatoes with 210 reviews, and the verified audience score is 74% with more than 5,000 ratings. On Metacritic, it has 77 Metascore based on 42 critic reviews, which falls into the generally favorable range. The user score there is 7.4 based on 207 ratings. The critics' reaction makes sense to me. Many critics are responding to the atmosphere, the practical sets, the sound design, and the way Kane Parsons translate internet horror into full theatrical experience. But even in the stronger reviews, you can see the split. Some critics praise the movie's restraint and mood. Others point out the same issue I have. Once the movie settles into its rhythm, the repetition can start to feel less like dread and more like waiting. And that is exactly where I land. I respect the movie. I like a lot of what it's doing, but I also understand why some viewers may bounce off the pacing or feel like the mythology gets smaller once that final act starts explaining more. Now, financially, this thing is a monster. According to the numbers and Box Office Mojo, Backrooms opened to about $81.4 million domestically, with 3,442 theaters. Internationally, it added about another 36.5 million, bringing the worldwide total to roughly $117.9 million. The reported production budget was roughly around $10 million, so the worldwide total is already 11.8 times the production budget, and that is massive for A24. It also makes the movie a major win for internet-born horror, for Kane Parsons, and for studios looking for creator-driven horror as something that can actually break through theatrically. Think of Curry Barker and Obsession. So even with my own rating, the larger story here is obvious. Backrooms connected. It hit with critics. It hit with enough of the audience, and at the box office, it did not just open well, it blew the doors open. Now, what worked best for me to a certain degree was how committed the movie was to making the Backrooms feel like a psychological machine instead of just a monster zone. The concept is scary because of atmosphere, repetition, and wrongness. The movie lets the space become the threat. The practical sets help a lot. The walls, carpet, lights, and furniture feel real enough that the impossible parts become more disturbing. The found footage sections also work. The Async Prologue gives fans the classic Kane pixels feeling right away. Bobby's camera gives the second act a natural reason to switch formats, a return to the found footage style. The Bobby Chute sequence is one of the best set pieces in the movie. Rope, bed, chute, clothes, Bobby's own shirt, a face in the pile, strange sounds, and then the obvious pull downward. And I think overall the dinner scene is the strongest spoiler sequence. It shows Clark's failed marriage, a turnabout of Mary's therapy exercise, Kat's murder, the edible copies, Clark's bad copy of his red-haired wife, and the refrigerator reveal. The biggest part is the pirate's still life, both physically and thematically. That is a lot for one sequence to carry, but it works because every piece connects back to Clark's collapse. Mary's final fight also works. She does not just run, but she fights back, and the concrete handprint gives that fight emotional weight. And the ending works because it does not confuse survival with freedom. Mary gets out of the backrooms, but she wakes up in async custody. Then the six-eyed Mary copy tells us the backroom still has her too. Strong horror ending, answers but no comfort. What did not work depends on what kind of horror you wanted. The movie's biggest risk is that it shifts through several horror modes. Async found footage, Clark character study, Cat and Bobby survival horror, dinner table body horror, corporate containment horror. I like the progression, but I can see some viewers feeling the tonal shifts. The lore may also feel dense for casual viewers. If you know Kane pixels, async, lifeform, and still life, the ending has extra weight. I also think Cat and Bobby are mostly functional characters. Their scenes work, but they exist mainly to show two sides of danger. Bobby shows the monster threat, Cat shows Clark's moral collapse. That is effective, but I would also have taken a little more time with them before the expedition, and the async ending may frustrate people who wanted Mary to fully escape. Also, the film demands patience. There are stretches where the repetition of hallways, doors, corners, and fluorescent rooms start to feel less like dread and more like waiting. For some viewers, that slow rhythm will be the point. For others, it may feel like the movie is holding back for too long. And because the film avoids over-explaining its mythology, anyone looking for a full rulebook or clean answers to every question may walk away frustrated. But for the story that restraint mostly works, the Backrooms will not feel fully solved. So where do I land on the Backrooms? For me, this is a strong creepypasta adaptation, but not a perfect one. I respect the movie a lot. I like the world building, I like the performances, I like the practical sets, the sound design, and the way the film understands the fear at the center of the Backrooms. This is not just fear of being chased, it's the fear of being misplaced, the fear of entering a space that looks familiar enough to recognize but wrong enough that your body rejects it. And when the movie is working in that mode, it really works. The early found footage material works, the practical backroom spaces work, Clark's obsession works, Mary's trauma arc works, and the final image of the six-eyed Mary still alive is exactly the kind of wrong, uncomfortable image that this movie needed to end on. But I also think the final act is where the movie starts working against its own strongest weapon. The Backrooms are scariest when they feel unknowable, when they feel like a place that cannot be fully mapped, explained, or contained. And by that end, the movie starts answering more than I wanted it to. Clark explains the still life copies. Async explains its role. The pirate gives the ending a more familiar monster movie shape, and while these pieces are interesting, they also make the mythology feel a little smaller. I still like the ending. I like the idea that Clark is consumed by the entity he created to avoid himself. I like that Mary survives by using the physical weight of her own trauma against that monster. I like that Async is not in control, even though they are trying to act like they are. But the more the movie explains the Backrooms, the less anxious I felt about them. That is my main issue. The concept is great, the production value is solid, Chiwetel Ejiofor is outstanding, and Renate Reinsve may be the real standout because she also keeps the movie emotionally grounded. But the pacing is slow and not always in a way that built dread for me. There were stretches where the hallways, doors, corners, and fluorescent rooms started to feel less like tension, more like waiting. And as much as I like the themes of sensory deprivation, loneliness, obsession, and being trapped inside your own patterns, I wanted the film to push those ideas a little further. I still feel that The Backrooms is a solid 3 out of 5 for me. It is worth seeing if you like A24 horror, slow burn atmosphere, analog dread, found footage, adjacent storytelling, liminal spaces, and movies that make ordinary rooms feel hostile. But if you need fast pacing, constant scares, or clean mythology answers, this may work better for you on streaming. For me, Backrooms is a movie I admire more than I fully loved. It has great pieces. It has a few images I will keep thinking about, but it also made me miss the version of the Backrooms that felt more unknowable, more empty, and harder to explain. Well, that's my spoiler breakdown of the Backrooms. I want to know what you think. What did the final six-eyed Mary image mean to you? Is Mary still Mary? Is the clone just a copy? Or did the Backrooms take something more permanent from her? And here's the biggest question. By the end, is Async worse than the Backrooms? Also, do you think that Mary can come back in the Backrooms sequel? Perhaps as an in-house psychologist helping Async interview survivors for the Backrooms. Give them mental health tools they need to process this mess and assimilate back into society quietly. What do you think of that, or about the film, or about this review? Did I get the Backrooms right? Should I have been more lenient with my rating? Drop your thoughts in the comments, especially if you caught more connections to Kane Pixel's original web series. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell for more sci-fi, horror, action-adventure, prop culture, and all things geek. Check out the Intelligent Filmgoers apparel. The link is in the description, and if you are seeing this in theaters, do not forget the Run P app, so you know the best time to step out without missing the moments that actually matter. I'm Rob. This has been a constantly racing mind where every frame tells a story. Thank you for watching, and take care.